Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined as always by Pat Crane, Danny Carter, Kyle Dvorchak, as we get ready to preview the entire Week 7 slate. We're going to go in depth on some of the week's biggest games, even though they're all bad this week, except for
you said that last week.
Except for Sunday Night Football between the Steelers and Miami Dolphins. But we're going to talk about the Seahawks at the Chargers, the Ravens hosting the Browns. We'll touch on all the hot button players of the week as usual. Maybe we'll put Crane on the spot for a stat of the week because I think we're doing that again, Pat. And,
okay.
But we didn't have a riffing topic, and I just said, let's just talk about Russell Wilson. Denny and I talked about on Galaxy Brains. There's always something to talk about this guy who is now saying he has Wolverine blood, as Denny points out, as he recovers from his hamstring injury. Is that even good, though? Like, does Wolverine blood, like, let you complete 3 passes after halftime?
Well, it's healing.
It's healing.
Right? It doesn't. You don't get any better than you were. You just return to what you were before.
Okay.
So he's healing back to bad.
So it's more like he has lizard limbs, in that like lizards can lose their tail and get it back, but he is like a small animal unable to play football. Yeah, he's a lizard. He's prey. Yeah. He's not a predator.
Crane, by the way, Daugherty has no idea about any of this because instead of reading comic books and watching the XMen cartoon growing up, he was reading, baseball almanacs from 1978. So I'm not even kidding. So it's
guy's ERA is pretty good.
When you say that he's healing, Pat, he has no idea what he's talking about right now. Like part of Wolverine's superpower is that he heals from literally anything.
The only
Wolverine has what is it called? The metal that's in his bones?
Adamantium.
Adamantium, it's indestructible metal, so that makes him a very powerful weapon. But it's just metal inside him, and his power is being able to heal after the metal shoots out. That's it.
Right.
Well, interesting. The only X-Men property I've ever seen, I think it had one of those really tortured titles, like X-Men Origins, Wolverine or something, and he goes to Australia and kills a bunch of people or something.
Yeah, okay, so you've seen that one for sure.
I've seen that one, or he's on a motorcycle, then he
does that, yeah.
He stabs someone with his claw or something.
Did you just
it came free with Baseball Almanac that year.
It's weird. I think I was not allowed to watch the X-Men cartoon or something when I was 5. And then my brother and I just moved on from morning cartoons to watching The Simpsons at age 7. And we watched the hip shows, like Animaniacs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the hipster shows. Listen, X-Men was a little risque, a little bit. There was a fair amount of violence. There was some suggestive nature with the women in that show. I'm just saying that it was a little bit much for the parents of the 90s.
I just remember it. I swear to God, I'm actually not making this up. It was not that we were not allowed to watch it. I was conflating a memory I had. I had a kid come over to my house in 2nd grade, and all he wanted to do was watch X-Men because his parents would not allow him to watch X-Men. So he went in my basement and instead of hanging out with me, it was just parked in front of the TV watching X-Men. Maybe you guys want to hang out, actually, maybe?
No, that's good. Everyone needs that friend that lets you play rated T for teen video games, watch the late night type of comics and stuff. Mm-hmm. You were that friend. And although it didn't make you feel good, you offered a lot of utility to the team.
Yeah, we didn't have cable either, though. So he was lucky that X-Men was over the air back then. And we are lucky that
football is over the air. We are lucky
to say that this game was good that we're starting with, but it's not at all. Fall is the season of renewal in Dallas, where the touchdown home favorite Cowboys get back Dak Prescott as the Lions come off bye and welcome back D'Andre Swift and a healthier Amon-Ra St. Brown. A wide receiver, Crane, is talking about putting on the cover of his column this week, but we're not talking to Pat. We're talking to Denny. We'll get to the Lions in a minute, but we will begin with the Cowboys and their quarterback situation, Denny. Can a team having this much success with its running game and defense actually return to a more pass-heavy approach? Or are we going to be disappointed by Dak Prescott?
Absolutely. Yes. It's a great question. Yes, you are going to be disappointed by Dak Prescott and pretty much everything in this game. I think there's just no way in my mind. And I have a galaxy brain. Okay. We do the show Galaxy Brains. I've tried to reach to the outer limits of my mind and see is there a scenario where Dak Prescott goes wild here against the Lions. I don't see it. The Lions are the 9th most extreme run funnel defense. Each of their past 3 opponents had a negative pass rate over expected. Detroit is being run on by everybody. They're allowing the second highest EPA per rush this season.
The University of Illinois just ran for 233 yards in them last weekend.
Who would say that couldn't happen is what I would say. And I think the Cowboys are going to establish early and often. This is an uncreative, uninspired Dallas offense, very predictable. They're going to make this game closer than it needs to be. I mean, who's to say that they're even going to win this game? That's what I would say.
Wow.
No, listen, they're going to be the same team with Dak Prescott as they were with Cooper Rush because they're not going to use Dak Prescott the way they should. That's my opinion.
Can I give a little more optimism for this? I don't actually disagree with Denny's layout of the game in general, but I do think there's a big difference between Dak Prescott, assuming his thumb is healthy enough, compared to Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush ranks 23rd in EPA per play. He's 34th in completion percentage over expected. He's been super inaccurate. Only Justin Fields and Baker Mayfield have been less accurate. So, yes, I think they'll go run first. I think the Lions could struggle. The Cowboys are also a run funnel. We're going to see a lot of short passing from the Lions. It might be kind of a sloggy type of game. But that accuracy, I think, is a very big deal for CeeDee Lamb, for Michael Gallup. So, compared to what we've been dealing with, I think it could still be an improvement.
That's true. I will say that Cooper Rush has been quietly terrible.
He has, yeah. I mean, he got celebrated for the QB win-losses, but not good at all. But I unfortunately agree with Denny's point. I think they're going to basically treat Dak Prescott like he's Cooper Rush. Since he is Dak Prescott, he will produce much better stats. But I don't really see a sea change coming to the approach at all. I mean, they did this for whenever they could do this last year, they also did this. Because week one, remember, we got 68 attempts against the Bucks. And we're finally, they're going to run like a real offense. And then it was 24 attempts every week after that.
Yeah.
And that is Mike McCarthy's spirit animal. Kyle Crane mentioned some of the other Cowboys pass catchers, but is there a Cowboys pass catcher to care about this week not named CeeDee Lamb? If Dalton Schultz plays, Dalton Schultz is always really compiled with Dak Prescott. Is Michael Gallup climbing the rankings at all, or is it really just kind of CeeDee and wait?
Yeah, I kind of like this game from a Dallas passing attack perspective because I do think philosophically they don't care that much if they're throwing the football. Maybe they won't throw the football that much. The good news is you shouldn't have to throw the ball that much against the Lions to actually have a productive passing attack, even if it's 32, 33 attempts and they win the game somewhat easily. The Lions are they're terrible in every facet of defensive football you can imagine. They are 32nd in the NFL in EPA per dropback allowed, and they're 31st in EPA per rush attempt allowed. Teams run on them because they're typically beating them, but when they do pass, they bury the Lions. They bury the Lions however they want. And Michael Gallup, he's looked pretty strong since coming back. He's got a 19% target share and a 27% air yard share among all players. It's top 40 weighted opportunity rating. And that's with a quarterback who I would imagine, Cooper Rush's skill set for Michael Gallup being the boundary field stretcher probably doesn't match up with him that well because he's a backup quarterback and not even a great one at that. So I think once you get Dak Prescott back in the lineup, we should see Michael Gallup's numbers increase. And they were already at least acceptable with Cooper Rush under center in terms of his usage. So I'd actually be I don't know if you need to play him in your flex this week, but maybe it's more of a DFS or I don't know, good teams are on bye this week. Maybe you are flexing him. Yeah, you know what? You are flexing him. I'm going to be more confident.
All right, hell yeah. Wow, some amount of confidence on the podcast. That's a big step.
It's the first time this year, I believe.
Yeah, I know. We love to. Yeah.
Kyle, do you log your confidence in a spreadsheet?
Confidence points over expected. Is that what CPOE says?
Confidence points over expected are through the roof for Kyle right now. So we just got the big picture for the Cowboys, Denny. The big picture for the Lions is they got shut out by the New England Patriots before their bye. They've had a lot of injury issues. It's the Lions party over, even as they get back D'Andre Swift this week. Hopefully they get back Amon-Ra St. Brown to better health. He played against the Patriots, but was nowhere close to healthy. Right. Can we still be excited about this team, or is this just going to be a nightmare against Micah Parsons and the Cowboys?
Yeah, well, you forced me to watch that Patriots-Lions game, so I can report back that Amon-Ra St. Brown was not at full health, and in fact, he was under 70% route participation in that game.
And that's where you caught almost a near fatal case of Zappy fever.
When you said the score of that game, I was like, oh, Amon-Ra must have not played. I was actually confident, having obviously Denny being the one who watched it. I was confident he didn't play. I was like, oh.
He did play. So, Denny, are they the Lions lioning, or are they going to keep overachieving?
So, no, I think St. Brown and D'Andre Swift being being back and hopefully to full health, it's huge for this team. They really just are not the same without those two. The Lions have gotten by on play volume through much of this season. We've seen that over and over. Both Dallas and Detroit are top 5 in offensive snaps allowed per game. So I think there's a possibility we could see that unfold here if the Cowboys are not in position to completely take the air out of the ball. We're hoping and praying that doesn't happen. Obviously the Cowboys pass rush could be a problem against anybody, but for a Lions offensive line graded by Pro Football Focus as the league's 4th worst pass blocking unit, I think this is what the kids are calling a mismatch. So I think we are going to see, Crane said a second ago, lots of short passes, lots of dump offs, quick hitting stuff. That's probably all Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Lord willing. And yeah, DJ Shark still not practicing. Josh Reynolds still not practicing. Not that they're competing for targets with Amon-Ra St. Brown. They basically play a different position. That's another concern for the Lions, is they're not going to really have like that boundary presence so that could like condense the field even further, which just could be a problem. But I want to thank the doctors and nurses at Baltimore General, by the way, for saving Denny's life from Zappy fever. It was almost
comparing him to Chad Pennington. We almost lost him.
Yeah, we were really, really worried. So thank you so much to them. We're going to stick with Denny Carter here. 11-point road favorites, Denny. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are searching for meaning in life, as the Panthers are searching for a single good football player not named Christian McCaffrey. What is going on in this game?
Panthers are maybe the most down bad franchise in all of sports, like across the entire world. The Panthers had 15 air yards in week 6 against the Rams. 15.
Hold on. What? Are you serious?
Yeah. 15.
That's a real stat.
I think it depends on where you track it too.
Yeah, it depends on where you look, because Rotoviz has it's a negative ADOT.
Like PFF sometimes will track, penalties for plays, because that was like an intention of the team, although the play doesn't count. So they probably gave him positive air yards, where like Next Gen Stats gave him, and like NFL Stat R gave him the first game since 2006 with a quarterback to have negative air yards.
Right.
Negative. That is like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean,
that is below 0.
Right, it is.
It literally is.
My interns have confirmed that. PJ Walker, who is, I believe, expected to start again somehow, had a 3.75 adjusted yards per attempt against the Rams. So I don't know. I mean, obviously you have to play CMC, but besides that, like, you don't have to play DJ Moore, even with Robbie Anderson.
You probably shouldn't.
You actually
shouldn't play DJ Moore.
Even CMC, obviously, you're never been. The Bucks allow the fewest running back fantasy points.
Like, it's ugly. It's ugly for McCaffrey.
I think the negative ADOT though is like exactly what you want for CMC.
To McCaffrey, he had a 38% target share last. That tied his career high, 38%. Yeah. So I mean, they're getting the ball to McCaffrey at this point. Like, I don't care anymore about anyone but McCaffrey. Just keep McCaffrey going.
Right. Yeah, it's not a bit from you actually can't play DJ Moore.
Correct.
You can't.
No. Yeah, I mean, you can't even play Laviska Shenault in this game.
No, I know. Which Bucks can we play?
Two quick notes on the Bucks. I know Godwin was a little disappointing last week. I mean, not really. He had over 90 yards on like 6 catches. So I don't know why folks seem to be down on him, but he leads the Bucks in yards per route run last week, and was 10th last week in wide receiver expected fantasy points. And I think we could see, with the Bucks being massive favorites here, 10.5 point favorites as of this recording, we could maybe see some more Rachaad White, maybe getting some run in a blowout script. He has 33% of the team's snaps and 13% of the team's opportunities. That means targets plus carries over the past 3 games. Could we get a little more run for White on a bye week? And if you're in bye week hell, and I am in a couple leagues, you throw in White as a flex maybe.
Well, Denny, Rachaad White's been your RB1 since week 1 in every league, though, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Keyshawn Vaughn, actually.
Yeah. People are saying Rachaad White may get some run and closeout mode this week, and yet it's hopefully this Tom Brady finds what he's looking for in this game, because he didn't find it last week.
No,
he was very upset. And he seemed a little happier in his press conference this week. He vowed to finish the season, so that was good.
That's good.
I hear
That's good.
That was really good, I thought.
Was anyone talking about him not? That's kind of concerning.
Apparently our friend Chris Sims was, and that was broached. Chris wasn't like passing along a report or anything like that. So not to misattribute something to Chris Sims, but he was like talking about it, and someone asked Tom Brady about like, hey, some people are wondering like if you're even going to finish the season.
I wouldn't. This looks like a miserable experience.
Yeah, it does. And Tom, you need to just yell harder at your offensive line this week, I think. Tom.
More F-bombs.
Yeah, more F-bombs.
Break more of those tablets.
The Indianapolis Colts welcome back Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines as they visit Tennessee as 2.5-point underdogs, Kyle. The question is, was last week's pass-heavy approach a one-off for the Colts, and is it just back to ground and pound with Jonathan Taylor this week?
I would think so. I mean, we've seen Matt Ryan consistently be horrific up until last week. But the one thing that I think almost certainly has to stay, especially if the Colts want to be successful, I think this recipe makes sense, is last week they gave Matt Ryan essentially the Ben Roethlisberger treatment. The first time they played the Jags, they got shut out. Matt Ryan had a 10.5 ADOT and nearly 3 seconds time to throw. 195 yards, 3 interceptions. No surprise there. He just doesn't have the arm for it anymore. Last week, 5.7 ADOT, nearly half, and a 2.37 time to throw. He was getting the ball out quickly to Deion Jackson, to Michael Pittman, and it worked. 389 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was a genuinely good game for him. He looked Drew Brees in a good way-esque, and, sort of you lump in like late career Ben Roethlisberger, but those offenses worked far better than if they were forcing their respective quarterbacks to throw deep downfield, because none of these guys, Matt Ryan included, have the juice at 36, 7, 8 years old. It's just not in their repertoire anymore.
He's 48, Matt Ryan.
That makes sense now. I was thinking when I said 38, I was like, that might be a decade off.
He graduated Boston College in 1992, I think. A year before they beat Notre Dame.
He was the cover of Madden 01.
Yeah.
He's younger than me, folks.
Bush
he's younger than me.
So,
sorry,
I mean, it's fine. We see, Frank Reich consistently when he has bad quarterbacks, he leans on his running backs. That's what he's done throughout his career as a head coach. And he still, I believe, has probably a bad quarterback. But I do think he's found a recipe to make that work to the best of his ability. I still think you're starting Jonathan Taylor as like a top 2 or 3 running back. Given the state of CMC's offense, like, it may be that he could still be like, the second running back in the NFL in terms of fantasy points. But now they have a recipe to make the passing game work. On the other side, it's like the most boring game I can possibly imagine. Robert Woods is averaging like 1.7 yards per route run, 7.3 yards per target. He's going to be their top receiver. And that's not, it's fine for him. Maybe he has some flex value, but it's bad for the offense. Robert Woods cannot be your top receiver. So it's Derrick Henry. If you're down bad, if you're in the Rachaad White tier, Dontrell Hilliard ran her out on 54% of Ryan Tannehill dropbacks in week 5. He's been targeted on 33% of his routes. He's like a legit good passing down back, I think, at least based on the early start to the year. So he's in that Rachaad White. If you're desperate, I could get on board with it.
I feel like I'm a little less optimistic about the Colts because I think so much of it was just volume last week. He had 58 dropbacks last week. Paris Campbell last week had 0.98 yards per out run. Still stinks. Alec Pierce was a little bit better, but I think he's going to be kind of a deep threat. Like, yeah, he's semi interesting to me, but yeah, I don't know. It just feels like if there's not a ton of volume, there wasn't actually all that much efficiency on the routes. They
ran a lot of routes, but Ryan was 6th in dropback EPA. Like, this is how you make him work. And that's not just like acceptable. That was really good. And I do think like it will get lost in the receiver routes when all of them are trying to split this 5 yards, 3 yards of yak, get tackled type of production. But in PPR leagues, that'll still get the job done. And it's how this team has to work. Like, you think Matt Ryan wasn't impressive last week? You should have seen him every other week of the season.
Yeah, but he won't have 58 dropbacks every week.
I'll say the keeping hope alive this week is the Titans have a really, really bad pass defense.
They do.
Like, really bad. One of the worst in the league. And rational coaching, you would like to think that, hey, that worked that kind of sparked what had been an unwatchable offense. It aligns with this team's defensive weaknesses this week, but we cannot assume that since Jonathan Taylor is back. Yeah, and Frank Reich is going to want to get him his carries.
Right. I mean, 2 things about the way the Colts played. They played more quickly. Lots of hurry up, especially in the first half, and Ryan got the ball out much more quickly than he had the previous 5 weeks. If that continues, I think, even though I agree with Crane, Paris Campbell's probably not good, but he could fall into a bunch of targets again as an underneath target.
Yeah, I don't know if I dig too deep to the Paris Campbell, Alec Pierce, especially with Pierce's skill set not necessarily matching up with what we think should be successful. But this made me feel good about Michael Pittman. The fact that, like, oh, he's not just going to be like, hope to God Matt Ryan can throw me a decent 50-50 ball. Now they actually have ways to make him work. But I kind of agree with Crane that, like, they philosophically want to run the football. So it's better, but good might be a stretch.
One thing that's interesting on Pierce is I was digging into some first read data this week. He's been he's seen a first read target on 19% of his routes this season, which is actually pretty high. And Pittman's only at 15%. So when he's out there, they do seem to be looking for him. So, like, it actually is a pretty intelligent design. If, like, when Pierce is running routes, you know, the first read is to see if you can hit him deep. Because the
intentional,
only thing you can do is, the only thing they can do is throw short otherwise, including to Pittman, who has a much more shallow ADOT this year than previously. So that makes me a little more interested in Pierce, also a little less interested in Pittman if maybe Pierce is going to get more of kind of like a 1A, 1B treatment as he eventually runs a full slate of routes. He's not there yet, but I don't know. Things are kind of bubbling underneath the surface for Pierce, in my opinion.
Whatever the reasons were, Michael Pittman's 16 targets in week 6 were the 5th most by any wide receiver all season, by the way. So hopefully, and by the way, Crane, intelligent design, we don't get political in here, okay? We don't get political on here. Limping along at 3-3, the Cincinnati Bengals will be attempting to exceed 500 for the first time all season as they host the Atlanta Falcons as 6-point home favorites. Crane, Cincinnati has the stars. Well, I mean, Atlanta does too. They just don't use them. But the Falcons is where the intrigue is in this game. They're getting by with committees, both in the running game and receiver core. Very open-ended question, but, like, which Falcons can we even be excited about at this point?
So I guess my whole case here depends on the Bengals side. So hopefully, Denny, who you're going to throw to the Bengals, agrees with me that the Bengals might press the Falcons. But I'm actually kind of excited about, like, all the Falcons this week. I feel like if you're in the Falcons starting business, like, this is kind of your week. Tyler Algier.
Business has not been booming.
Business has not been good, but hey, if you're still open somehow, I definitely would be starting him this week. I mean, Tyler Algier, he has a 59% snap share over the last 2 weeks. He's playing 70% of the third down snaps, so he's insulated from game script. In fact, I think he's in better shape if they get pushed to the pass because it probably means less Huntley, more him. Maybe he happens to be on the field, you know, when they are running the ball a little bit more, and he gets more of a carry advantage over Huntley, only a 4 carry advantage over Huntley over the last couple weeks. Pitts was at an 82% route rate last week. That's pretty good. Drake London was at 100%. London has an elite 2.23 yards per out run. He's actually been inefficient on his targets. So if anything, he should be due for positive regression on a per target basis. We just need more targets. He's got a ton of upside if they throw more. Pitts has been terrible on his targets. His expected yards per out run, though, is 2.38, which is an elite mark for any player, not just a tight end, but obviously very elite for a tight end. He has a 13.6 ADOT. So he's the type of guy who's got big play upside on any given target, even if the volume here isn't all that high. And I do think it could be somewhat high, again, if the Bengals push. So, I mean, yeah, like probably 2 of these 3 guys are going to absolutely crush us this week, but that would be less than the normal percentage of 3 of 3. So, you know, I think you're starting your Falcons.
I just can't with these Falcons, even in the times they give up points, like, which is what we need, right? When they don't give up points, they win, but they run the football. They gave up the most points of the year for them against the Rams, 171 passing yards. And then the other 2 most points they've given up, 217 and 205. Like, they're just philosophically bad. And then when they try and pass, it doesn't matter. I can't be hurt again, Crane, please.
Oh no, I'm with Crane here. Listen, look, the Bengals, they I think they're figuring it out. It always takes Zach Taylor about half a season to figure out that his offense should not
learn the same lesson
to read the Jamar Chase manual. It says here the guy's the number 4 pick.
Oh, it says here the guy's elite in every respect.
He's the guy from Memento.
So he's done. So they've been doing this thing where they've centered their offense around Joe Mixon, one of the least efficient running backs in the NFL.
Truly horrific advanced metrics this year for Joe Mixon.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, really, like he's been awful by every measure. Okay, but we're centering our offense around that. But last week it was different. 96% shotgun formation usage for the Bengals last week. That's fantastic for this offense. Their pass rate over expected was 20. They were 21% over their expected pass rate. I am, trying not to pee my pants right now, just talking about it. And I'll tell you if I'm successful.
It's incontinence season, folks.
Oh, no, he wasn't.
But just a little. It's just a little. Anyway, so this is good. This is good for the whole Bengals offense, obviously for Chase, obviously for Higgins. Higgins saw 10 targets last week, partly because of the massive play volume and massive drop back volume for Burrow. But if they keep this up, I think that, Chase becomes less volatile. I think Higgins becomes way more interesting. Even Tyler Boyd could be serviceable in a situation. Jeez, man, you scared the crap out of me.
What's actually startling? Apologies to the listeners for that. People swerving on the road.
I thought I almost fell out of my chair.
Well, I think what really happened is involved. You a second ago said you were having trouble holding something, Denny, and I think I just scared you enough that maybe
now it's definitely happening.
Yeah.
One more note on Chase. Over the last 2 weeks, he's run a third of his routes from the slot. That's good. Moves him around the formation a little bit. He's been successful as a slot receiver. We saw that last week against the Saints. So let's keep going with this, Zach Taylor.
And you go, Crane.
Yeah, just a couple notes on the two of the things that Denny mentioned there that I just want to underline. The 21% pass rate over expected that we got from the Bengals last year, highest of any team all season this year. Super high. Really exciting. Kevin Cole noted that the 2 snaps where they weren't in shotgun last week, were a quarterback sneak and a kneel down.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They straight up operated exclusively out of the shotgun.
Wow, that is interesting. I got to watch the game sometimes.
Just listen to Kevin. He's doing it.
Okay. And Zach Taylor, I think we'll accept the challenge to then immediately not do that this week.
Stop.
Yeah, I know. But he's going to hurt us bad.
We're going to take a break so Denny can go to the bathroom. We'll be right back after this. Just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen in college football, on the NASCAR circuit, and in the Premier League. There's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Steelers and Dolphins in our Sunday Night 7 contest. With both teams in dire straits, Patrick Careen, the Green Bay Packers visit the quarterback-changing Washington Commanders as 5.5-point road favorites. A truly dismal 41 total. What do we need to know about this game? Not the lowest total of the week, by the way.
Yeah, you did mention the games this week aren't ideal. This is one of those pretty rough games. We've got Taylor Heineke here. Kind of got excited. Maybe we get some Sam Howell in our lives. No, it's Taylor Heineke back in our lives. As a reminder from, if you wiped your memories of last year, Heineke ranks 8th in deep ball rate in 2021. He ranked just 34th in his rate of short passes. So obviously Heineke, attempting a lot of deep passes, that's his strength. Except, no, it's not his strength. He's terrible at throwing deep. He ranks 33rd in adjusted completion percentage on deep throws. So when you do something a lot and you're bad at doing it, that generally isn't good for an offense. So, are we going to get targets for Terry McLaurin? We'll probably get targets, but only Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, and Tyler Huntley were worse at throwing the deep ball in terms of adjusting completion percentage last year. So not expecting a ton of production, even if we do get targets for Terry McLaurin.
Pat, real quick before we move on McLaurin, is Taylor Heineke is like lab created to get wide receiver 23 finishes for Terry McLaurin. He will get you wide, not higher, not lower. He will get you wide receiver 23 with Terry McLaurin.
Well, lower when he gets him hurt, which he
That's
literally
a good
did
point.
last year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They went super run heavy, the Commanders, last year, as they got sick of watching Taylor Heineke like the rest of us. From weeks 11 through 18, they had a -6% pass rate over expected. That's currently what the 49ers and the Titans have. I think we're going to see plenty of the run game here. But Brian Robinson only played 48% of the snaps last week. So it's like a little bit hard to trust that he is going to get enough work to really pay off. The Packers are pretty bad against the run. So he's
going to say the Packers are very, very bad against the run.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say for the next 2 games, they ran him on first and second and 8+ 70% of the time. This is like intentionally designed to tank the offense. These next 2 games, I don't want to add a lot to make time, but man, They are designing intentionally a terrible offense in Washington, and it's not getting better. That's so frustrating.
Well, you want to hear about a terribly designed offense? Let's talk the Packers. Okay, they rank 28th in situation neutral pace. This is an offense designed to lose to Daniel Jones, to Zach Wilson, and maybe, just maybe, to Taylor Heineke. Commanders are the slowest team in the league. They're 32nd in situation neutral pace. The Packers, who I complain about constantly being slow, they're only 28th. So again, we're going to have the Commanders shift to the run here, throw a bunch of inefficient deep balls, punt a lot, and then the Packers are going to be playing slow on the other side. So there's just not going to be much volume in this game. Packers love getting into slogs with inferior opponents and then blowing it. That's probably what they're going to do here. Maybe they won't blow it. Romeo Doubs, by the way, as we were looking at guys that we can maybe play in this game, I mentioned last week he was having trouble earning targets. A lot of his targets coming on screen passes. Last week, it got even worse for him because he was double teamed on 16 routes. That tied DK Metcalf and Mike Evans for the highest of the week. More than doubled his double teams for the season. The Jets were like, you're not beating us with Romeo Doubs. That was very good for Allen Lazard. But like, he was already having trouble earning targets. And now teams are deciding, he's their number one guy. Sammy Watkins might be back, which could be a problem for Dobbs' routes. I don't think you're not playing Watkins, but we don't need someone coming in and stealing outside routes from Dobbs, which very, very well could happen. So he all of a sudden looks like super, super risky. It also adds some risk to Lazard in case the Packers view Dobbs as the number one guy now. And Lazard comes off the field for Watkins. But I guess like the only guy in really this whole game that I would actually be like semi-excited to play is Aaron Jones, but he's coming off a season low in snaps. He ranks just running back 36 in yards per out run. He's not getting involved as a receiver nearly at all like we thought he might.
No.
He's been an efficient rusher this season, but he's like a boom bust, like you're hoping for a long run type of, RB2 play. My God, what a horrible game.
Does anyone have a take on Curtis Samuel? Like, is the party over? Was that like solely a Carson Wentz thing?
It's over.
Okay.
I think it is over. I think that there was chemistry between the two. I think that Wentz looked to him way more than Heineke will look to him. Also, like Crane just said, like Heineke like lets it rip downfield, and I don't think Curtis Samuel is going to be on the receiving end of many of those.
Logan Thomas trending towards out, John Bates trending toward out. I'm just assuming you DFS sickos are all in on Cole Turner, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Then we have Kate Otten this week. We have other punt plays.
There's a lot of punts. There's a lot of punt plays this week. But it'll be Cole Turner by Sunday if I know you guys.
It will.
Moving on, the New York Giants are 5-1. Yet they find themselves as 3-point underdogs in Jacksonville, Florida. Just absolutely stunning at CD Carter 13. How can this be? And what do we need to know about this game?
This is disrespect, and I think that this feeds into the way the Giants want to view themselves as like scrappy underdogs. That's why every time the camera pans to Brian Daboll, he's running around screaming, sweating profusely.
He's fixing a Honda Accord on the sideline.
He just thumbs up.
changing tires. Yeah.
He was swapping out the entire engine. He's pretty talented.
The engine block. You're right. Yeah, and they love it. You know what they say? Make us dogs against the down bad. The Jaguars, they stink. Okay, they're really truly terrible. It got off to an okay start, but the Jaguars are 20th in EPA per play over the past 3 games. Trevor Lawrence has the league's 3rd worst completion rate over expected in that stretch after a good start. Again, I think I tweeted about it after week 2. I was like, oh, he may have figured it out, but no, he has not. I still think there must be something wrong with him physically because he throws these floaters all the time and they have no chance of being completed, especially near the sideline. The Jags have reverted to a hyper conservative run first attack with negative pass rate over expected.
Just always rolling right off the top.
It's just so easy to say.
Can we get some acronyms for this stuff?
Something about these computer science majors haven't made pretty sounding acronyms yet.
I need the nerds to come up with something easier than that. But anyway, they've been under expected pass rate the last 3 games. And that's been terrible, obviously, for Christian Kirk, for everybody in the passing game. Christian Kirk is still running basically all the routes, but with this new run-first approach, his routes have been under 30 in 2 of the past 3 games. For context, Kirk ran 42 routes in week 1 when he had that really solid game against Washington. So I don't really know like who you're excited about in the Jags offense, except for maybe like Travis Etienne as he slowly but surely takes over the lead back role, hopefully from James Robinson. It remains to be seen if Etienne's going to see the green zone work and the stuff that really counts. But I do like him this week. And then on the Giants side of the ball, Daniel Jones, you could do worse than Daniel Jones this week. He's fifth among all quarterbacks with 26 rushing attempts. That works out to about 4.3 per game. Over the past 3 games, no quarterback has a higher EPA per dropback than Daniel Jones, which is quite stunning to me. And strong overall EPA numbers for the Jags defense, but over the past 3 weeks, they've been much worse than they were in the first 3 weeks. So let's get those Giants in your lineups. By that I mean Saquon, maybe Daniel Jones, and maybe Wan'Dale Robinson.
The frustrating thing with this Etienne breakout is that last week he played 47% of snaps and James Robinson played 44%. There's some missing snaps there. Yeah.
What's going on?
Those missing snaps are Jermichael Hasties, who played 16% of the snaps. This, isn't this exactly what Urban Meyer would do?
It is, actually. Urban is what Doug Peterson's is an Urban puppet.
Urban has been coaching through Doug Peterson this whole time.
Doug keeps going to a walkie-talkie.
Pat, remember we talked about how specters loom? Well, the specter of Urban Meyer is looming over this team.
Ever-present looming of Urban Meyer. Jermichael Hasties can maybe cut those touches out.
Yeah,
please do. I did want to just get the definitive answer on this Trevor Lawrence arm strength question. Stronger arm, Trevor Lawrence or Bailey Zappi?
Oh, you have to go Lawrence. I mean, Bailey Zappi has he has the weakest arm of any quarterback in NFL history, probably.
Okay. I honestly thought you might go Zappi.
No. Zappi, it's actually kind of funny. I mean, he throws he has to let the ball go 4 seconds before the guy makes the break in his route, because it's whoop, real just a lollipop every time.
That's 2012 to 2015 Peyton Manning though, so he's in good company. And say what you will about Bill Belichick, for everything that's been going wrong with his team building the past few years, he's still we were talking about mechanics earlier. He just finds a mechanic, and Bailey Zappi can you lead the offense this week? 338 yards. He shut up.
I don't
Detroit
understand
Lions
how that
week,
happened.
please.
I mean, you got to hand it to Zappi. He can get by. He can throw for over 300 yards against an NFL defense with that arm. That's incredible.
Guys, we talk about props. We don't really talk about props much in the show. What are the odds right now? It's not a prop. What are the odds right now on Matt Patricia, assistant coach of the year, New England Patriots offensive coordinator Matt Patricia? No one even wants to laugh at that as a joke.
It just made me sad.
It made everyone very sad.
I can't even.
Well, once Mac Jones is back in the lineup, it becomes difficult again. He threw 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. If he convinced Bill Belichick to put Zappi in the lineup for the rest of the year, it's minus 5,000.
I didn't mean to make everyone sad by mentioning Matt Patricia. Time to move on. Prone to baffling inscrutability, the Chargers and the Seahawks square off in Los Angeles with the Bolts checking in a 6.5-point favorites, Kyle. We'll get to the Chargers and their returning star, Keenan Allen, in a minute, but I want to begin with the Seahawks, where Geno Smith finally had a disappointing start in week 6. Sorry if I sound too excited when I say finally. Was it a blip or the beginning of the inevitable regression to the Geno mean, Kyle?
Actually, I mean, I don't know exactly at this point what the Geno mean is, the Mino as we call it in the business, but I don't laugh at that. That was not funny. But I do think last week set up to be a pretty predictably poor performance from him. Geno leads the NFL in completion rate and yards per attempt versus man coverage. The Cardinals have just stopped playing man. It was already obvious going into that game that they were playing almost no man. And now he gets a Chargers team that is top 10 in man coverage, and they're hilariously still trotting out J.C. Jackson. J.C. Jackson ranks 3rd in the good way for offenses facing him, 3rd in yards per catch allowed, and 2nd in passer rating allowed. Chargers playing a lot of man. And we saw last week, the Cardinals didn't generate a ton of pressure, but they converted so many of their pressures into sacks. The pressures were instantly turning into sacks. And I don't think that that'll happen. Like, Geno's generally actually been pretty solid under pressure. It was just not a good outing for him last week. I think the pressure was sort of fluky and that it really converted at a high rate. So he gets a type of defense that he plays well against. I don't expect him to be pressured as much. The team still ranks, I think, 17th in PFF pass blocking grade. So I actually think this looks like a pretty good bounce back spot for him.
The Chargers defense has been so bad. The Seahawks are coming up on touchdown road underdogs. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit. It's 5.5 points, but this anecdotally, and kind of by the boomer stats, when Geno Smith is playing from behind, he has just been terrible.
But is it really a road game if it's in Los Angeles?
That's a good point, actually.
I mean, the crowd will be 65% Seattle fans.
At a minimum. And by the way, I did a poll last week of which fan base was least likely to take over SoFi Stadium, which is kind of a trick question since every fan base will take over SoFi Stadium.
Not the Panthers. Man,
the Jaguars won the poll, by the way.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
I would.
I think the Panthers is the
Panthers feels like a good bet.
No, Panthers, that's a much bigger metropolitan area than Jacksonville.
Yeah, but they have no fans. There are no Panthers.
You think the Jaguars have fans?
Yeah,
actually, they do on Twitter.
They have insanely rabid.
I was going to say, they're actually kind of scary.
Yeah, no, they're the scariest people.
Jags are like 2014-15 Bills era fans, like when Josh Allen was still not
that's actually a really good point. I kind of forgot the Jags have a really
team starting with PJ Walker doesn't have fans. They have people in mourning, but they don't have fans.
Listen, I live in fear of the Jacksonville of Jags Twitter. I do not fear Giants or Jets Twitter, so keep coming at me.
The Panthers had to just cast a net. They cast a net across 2 states in America to try to get some fans. You're supposed to pick a city. They just go Carolina or Carolina.
The Regional Sports Authority of the Carolinas presents the Panthers.
Yeah.
And anyways, back to this game. Pat Crane is at all systems go for Ken Walker. Almost 70% of the snaps last week. I believe like 22 touches. Any flies in the ointment there, or is it what it appears? And this is a man who has taken over the Seattle Seahawks backfield.
It's what it appears. He's running back 3 in rush yards over expected per attempt this season. He's only running back 36 in success rate. So, maybe we could get some frustrating, some boom bust type of rushing profile for Walker in a different situation, one where Penny was still around. Maybe you'd worry that, they get frustrated with Walker and he'd start to lose touches or something. But I don't think we're in that situation. They love him. They know his upside. He's already shown that upside. So I think they're just going to ride him. They're going up against a Chargers defense that is just bad in general. It's bad against the run. It's bad against the pass. So I do think that, Geno Smith should have a bounce back outing and, it should be a fairly efficient offense. And, kind of like how they were against the Lions, they'll probably still be running the ball at a fairly high rate as the game's close, but they have a chance to rip off long runs, which then sets up Geno for success working off of that. That's kind of to me, like the recipe you want for Seattle. They get the run game going. They have the whole offense kind of working, the run, setting up the pass, vice versa. They're definitely in position to be able to do that unless the Chargers just get way out ahead.
So speaking of the Chargers, Denny, are the Chargers actually as bad as they appeared in week 6, where just really, really dispiriting football? 238 yards on 57 attempts for Justin Herbert, 4.2 yards per attempt. He's under 200. He was under 228 yards the week before. There's only one multi-score start in 4 games since he injured his ribs. Can this Seahawks defense, one of the worst in the league, maybe pound for pound, the worst defense in the league, finally get Justin Herbert going?
I think so, but I mean, the offensive line situation is really bleak for the Chargers. At least it has been in the last couple of weeks. PFF grades the Chargers as the 9th worst pass blocking offensive line and the worst run blocking offensive line, which I was kind of surprised about. Obviously, that's due somewhat to injury, somewhat to guys being shuffled around. I'm sure Kyle has a 15-minute take on what the Chargers are doing on the offensive line. Herbert has faced pressure at the 4th highest rate among all quarterbacks who have taken at least half their team's snaps this season. His ADOT drops from 6.2 in a clean pocket to, are you ready for, I don't think you're ready for this, but I'm going to say it anyway, to 1.8 when facing pressure. So that means tons of targets for whoever is close to the line of scrimmage. Okay. And this is what I know from watching the games. Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, if he plays, Josh Palmer, I know he's in the concussion protocol, but he does operate nearer to the line of scrimmage than say a Mike Williams. So this development, bad for Mike Williams, good for maybe Allen, definitely Eckler. The Seahawks are not really known to pressure the quarterback, so maybe he can get by, maybe he can have some time in the pocket to operate. But the way that things are unfolding, it's just a bunch of check down stuff from Herbert.
Keenan Allen is expected back this week, by the way. He's practicing in full. Kyle, I mean, Denny actually did just kind of lay it out, but what do you think the effects of Keenan Allen are turning? By the way, Josh Palmer had like a baffling downfield role on Monday night all of a sudden where he just kept drawing defensive pass interference penalties.
Well, Mike Williams got the Pat Surtain treatment. We all know this. We're all grinding our cornerback film. We all expected this to happen, especially my showdown lineups with Mike Williams.
CB versus WR is back, folks.
So for
several years we talked about cornerback receiver matchups, and then everyone's kind of stopped talking about it.
Yeah, well, they're not like the most sticky or predictive. They matter when they matter, and then all of a sudden they don't matter. And like, well, this one was just an outlier or whatever. So I don't focus on them too much. But what I do think matters for this game is getting Keenan Allen back. I get that he's not a downfield threat, right? But he will have an ADOT multiples of Austin Eckler's. I mean, almost any running back is going to have an ADOT centered around like 0, like literally 0. It's just how running backs are used in the NFL. Whereas Keenan Allen's going to have an ADOT of something like 7 or 8. So if you're replacing a lot of these Austin Eckler, essentially, empty calorie types of targets with Keenan Allen 5, 6, 7 yards downfield, that's going to open up the entire offense. And we're seeing how bad this is hurting Justin Herbert. I mean, you read the stat line, but we saw last week 70% of his passes came 9 or fewer yards downfield. Like they just couldn't, they had no way to matriculate the ball downfield. And Keenan Allen, though not a deep threat, they don't need a deep threat. They just need that intermediate chain mover on this offense. And as much as I love Austin Eckler, almost no running back is actually going to fulfill that role. So I think this helps the offense as a whole. I don't know exactly if it helps Mike Williams. I think good players who have less competition for targets is probably a good thing, but it's not really going to hurt him that much. Like he wasn't playing a role that was exactly tailor-made for him. Now at least the offense will be more productive and he has someone to take some heat off of him.
The interesting thing with, all of these, the check downs, the short throws, Herbert is not like a particularly voluminous deep ball thrower, but he has generally thrown a lot of intermediate throws. Last year, he attempted an intermediate pass on 20% of his throws. That was quarterback 18. He's down to 14% this year. Only Aaron Rodgers and Carson Wentz rank lower in intermediate throw rate. So I think completely agree. Keenan Allen would be a major boost. I also think the fact that the Seahawks really haven't been pressuring the passer could be a potential godsend for this offense. And the offensive line stuff is so weird because like we talked about this 6th-round rookie, Jamari Sailor, who's at left tackle, played really well in his first game, played horrible the following week. He played well against last week. Everyone else on the Chargers offensive line was horrible last week. So they can't seem to get it together on the offensive line. But the guy who you think would be maybe the weak link has now had 2 good games out of the last 3 games. They're going up against a very poor pass rush. If Keenan Allen's back, they don't need to be hitting these long, deep shots. They just need to be able to get the ball like 11, 12 yards downfield, and they should be able to do that.
They also do need to hit some deep shots as Justin Herbert, and maybe Joe Lombardi should take a look in the mirror.
I should say real quick that the Chargers have an implied total of 28.5, so there could be some point scoring here.
Give us some points, please. Somebody this week. Chiefs 49ers is one of the week's highest total games at 48.5. Speaking of someone who may give us points, but it seems like, Kyle, that we have fallen into boredom with both of these skill cores. What do we need to know about this game?
Yeah, to me, the Chiefs are the same as they've always been, essentially. Juju last week, 94% route rate, MVS over 83%. Both those guys, and I believe every single game this year, have been above 75%. No one else on the team, at least receivers, obviously Travis Kelce, you just start him every week. Don't worry about that. No one else on the team, though, was over 50% route rate. None of the rest of them are startable. I hope one day Sky Moore gets in the lineup more, but you probably don't even need to stash him yet. I do like in this matchup, we saw it again last week, that Juju versus man is not good. You don't want him having to physically beat another player who exists on the NFL field. He has a 17% air yard share and 19% target share versus man, only targeted on 18% of his routes. Versus zone, where maybe he doesn't exactly need to use his physical skill set, but he is a seasoned veteran, only 21 years old still, of course, but a seasoned veteran nonetheless. 23% target share, 23% air yard share, and targeted on 24% of his routes versus zone. 49ers, top 5 in zone coverage rate. We saw it last week. Juju got there versus a very zone heavy team. Hopefully we at least get some production out of one of them. To me, my bet is this week again, going with Juju. MVS running all the routes. I mean, he runs all the routes with Patrick Mahomes. Maybe you can still play him. That's the argument to still play him. 49ers are not particularly interesting. They're, like you said, boring. We know what they are, right? All 3 of their, I'll call them the big 3, Ayuk, Debo, and Kittle last week were between, I believe, 10 and 11 targets. And the Chiefs allowed the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So maybe things keep rolling for Ayuk and get back on track for Debo.
It seems like everyone disagrees with everything.
They're predictable. They've been pretty much the same once both these teams are healthy. Kittle wasn't healthy early in the year.
I think Jimmy G has some streaming appeal in 12-team leagues since it's a bye week, since the Niners could be pressed out of their preferred run-heavy attack. We saw Jimmy G put up decent fantasy numbers last week as they chased points inexplicably against the Falcons. So if we're rooting for the Chiefs to stomp on these Niners early. If you are streaming Jimmy G, of course the floor is basically non-existent.
Would be nice for Kittle too.
It would be nice.
It's hard to really, honestly, it's hard to call Jimmy G a streamer. He's kind of just like a locked-in top 12 quarterback this week.
You've got 19 quarterbacks in your top 12, so it is.
It's true. It's really crowded in there. Did we mention Jeff Wilson, by the way? Like, talk about scams getting exposed last week. Like, if they're in trail mode, Jeff Wilson is in the bread line, basically.
My team.
Yeah, exactly. And they're going to be in trail mode this week. So,
well, Jeff Wilson's why they were in trail mode, because he fumbled the ball. They returned for a touchdown. So
that's right.
I don't know.
Had he thought about not, especially given his lack of? He should know his target share is pretty low.
If all you do is slam into the line, like maybe hold on to the ball.
So Jeff, food for thought heading into this game. We'll be right back. Download the Rotoworld app to receive. 3, 2, 1. Download the Rotoworld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in your app store today. Doing everything they can to spin the earth off its axis, the spiraling Denver Broncos host the surging New York Jets as 1-point home favorites, Denny. Much as I want to begin with the Broncos' struggles, we love talking about it more than almost anything in this world, Denny. Yeah, I'm more concerned in fantasy about the Jets' run-heavy ways and the toll it has taken on their pass catchers. So light at the end of the tunnel for any of these guys who are looking really, really interesting with Joe Flacco under center.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it is literally just a black tunnel from here until forever for everyone in this offense except for Breece Hall. I regret to inform Jets fans that the Jets are successfully hiding Zach Wilson with, I will say, inventive play calling. Okay. Lots of really cool run-based schemes. They use jet motion on like 80% of Zach Wilson's dropbacks last week. So they are doing everything they can to hide this kid. And he is a kid. I'm 39 years old, so I can say that. He has the 4th lowest. Wilson has the 4th lowest completion rate over expected in the NFL since taking over as starter. He's been pretty disastrous for the pass catchers. For example, Garrett Wilson. Okay, he had a 90-something% pass rate over the past 2 weeks. Okay, so he's out there. That's resulted in a total of 31 pass routes. For context, Garrett ran 37 routes in his big week 2 game against Cleveland. So with that sort of usage, with that sort of offense, very few guys are going to be able to get there. Usually nobody's going to be able to get there without an enormous play, like a 50, 80-yard touchdown, something like that, right? It's all Breece Hall. It's a little bit of Michael Carter. That's the way this team wants to play. Now, I don't know if they can execute that against what is a really good Broncos defense. Okay, like I know that they're losing and they look iffy at times, but that's because the offense is putting them in such bad predicaments. Okay, I think this Denver offense could eat Zach Wilson alive and kind of throw off that game plan. I always think that these offenses that are hiding their quarterbacks, leaning on the run so heavily, it's a very easily broken formula, right? It's like a fragile way to approach the game. And if a defense can force them into a pass heavy script, it's over for these Jets.
Yeah. Just speaking before you jump in, Crane, that's what the New England Patriots did to the Browns last weekend. Right. Nick Chubb.
So you guys want to hear the quarterbacks that Wilson was more efficient than last week in EPA per play?
Sure. Is this a stat of the week? Do we have one? Could this be
sure?
One?
Stat of the week. Here's EPA per play. The quarterbacks that finished lower than Zach Wilson in week 6 of the 2022 season. PJ Walker.
That's it.
I'm surprised there was any name. I thought it was going to be the classic 0 name reveal. I think the 1 name reveal was even funnier because PJ Walker did not look like he belonged in an NFL field.
That's it. Oh, it's bad.
So I mean, basically, you are hoping against hope that Garrett Wilson gets some more looks, that they're forced into pass heavy script. I guess you're playing Corey Davis. I mean, Corey Davis is probably the wide receiver 1 right now in that offense, which is really the very depressing thing to say. I don't like saying it. I don't like it, but I will say it. And then you're not playing Elijah Moore. You're just not.
You're not doing it. It's just not what you do in this country.
Also, Elijah Moore, please log off.
Yeah.
He was excused from.
He was excused from practice on Thursday.
Oh no!
No, I didn't sound like a suspension or anything.
Okay, but Elijah, please stop using the internet for a while.
Yeah, he needs a little bit of a break. We just kind of went through the reasons, Kyle, of like what could throw like the Jets rushing attack off balance, but Breece Hall, I mean, see a top 12 running back at this point.
Yeah, I have him ranked as RB9 this week. This is as of Thursday afternoon. It won't change too much. His role is really good. He has, since Zach Wilson returned, he has 69% of the team's running back carries, 52% of the red zone attempts. And even though we're not seeing as many targets overall to running backs, he still has a 14% target share, which is very strong. He also, on the year, leads all running backs in total air yards, and he's boat racing the rest of the running backs. They're at least occasionally taking some like middling, almost not quite deep shots, but they're letting him run downfield a little bit. He's super athletic. It makes sense to do that. So in the games they get behind, which was Zach Wilson, you kind of think that's always a risk. They'll be throwing to him. In the games they get ahead, they're running downhill with him. So it's like he's not quite game script proof, because if the Jets put up no points, that's going to be a problem, and that's on the table. But he's as close as a running back can get on a bad offense.
Crane, I asked Lawrence and Kyle the other day, switching to the Denver Broncos, about Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. We talked about on the Tuesday Rankings podcast, just like what if we had hope, what our feelings were. I mean, is there any hope that they live up to their fantasy expectations? Not that they haven't totally cratered yet, really, until last week. Like Courtland Sutton was still kind of getting home as a wide receiver 2. Jerry Jeudy was still kind of getting home, like in that wide receiver 3 mix, but like, what is the going forward outlook for these two guys who should be fantasy studs? What is the outlook right now?
The outlook is not good. The quarterback play we know is bad. I think this coaching is potentially worse. The thing, like, they won't stop running the ball, right? You have this really inefficient passing game. Wilson's 24th in EPA per play, but the Broncos rank 31st in EPA per rush. You want to hear the only passing game less efficient than the Broncos running game?
Do I?
The Carolina Panthers. They're the answer to everything. So like literally, because they won't stop running the ball, it's like they're taking the ball out of Russ Wilson's hands, which could be a good thing given how bad he's played, but they're handing it to the Carolina Panthers passing offense in terms of the efficiency gain. So it's a nightmare. You're not getting anything from the offense overall, not just Russell Wilson. Like, this isn't all his fault, even though he's been pretty bad. When you look at Courtland Sutton, one of the advantages that he's had in recent weeks is that he's had a huge gap between his routes run versus Jerry Jeudy. That has begun to shrink. Jerry Jeudy was at 94% route participation last week. He's seeing very similar target opportunity on a per route basis. So now you're setting up kind of a 1A, 1B type of thing. These guys are going to be cannibalizing each other. This is not the type of situation we want, given just how bad the offense is overall. I think the only way out of this is that Wilson takes a step forward. I don't there's no evidence that that's going to happen, but I think
there's evidence against it with these Subway commercials. My God.
Yeah. That's like really the only path to them not just being total disappointments.
So talking about the receivers not being total disappointments, who do we think the Broncos starting running back? I feel like I have Melvin Gordon ranked.
Hackett called him the starter earlier in the week, but he started him last week and just benched him. There's been all reports that say it was a complete benching. Gordon said he was like, yeah, I think I could have contributed to this game, but apparently not. Whereas the ever sarcastic Melvin Gordon was not happy with it. So you're not playing him. Even if he's the starter, he has the highest likelihood of being benched of any starter in the league right now.
That's the only reason he's starting. So Hackett can bench him again.
I feel for Melvin Gordon. I feel solidarity with him.
He's over it, man.
We talked about Urban Meyer earlier. I get very Urban Meyer vibes from Hackett.
Well, sort of. I mean, he's
more,
not.
But he's
kicking his players. Like
Like Urban Meyer is like
Urban Meyer's a tyrant.
Yeah.
Right. Hackett's more of a stooge type.
Yeah. He's sad sack Urban Meyer. He wants his players to like him, and they just don't.
He gives me like doesn't know what he's doing, bungling, this type of stuff. Urban Meyer vibes, but like, man, I miss the Urban Meyer days. God, that was fun.
So what Crane said, by the way, the Rosetta Stone for every NFL stat is the Carolina Panthers.
It really is. Just
consult that if you're wondering what. The only thing that could possibly be worse than your offense, it's probably in Carolina. Moving on from this game. Touchdown home favorites. The Miami Dolphins get back their quarterback on Sunday Night Football at 8:20 p.m. Eastern on NBC as the Pittsburgh Steelers wait on who theirs might be this week. Seems like maybe it'll be Kenny Pickett. Could definitely be Mitch Trubisky. Pat Crane, what do we need to know?
Yeah, looking at the Dolphins side of this, we're getting to it back. And, he obviously it's a small sample, but he's played so well this year, ranks quarterback 2 in EPA per play, quarterback 4 in CPOE. This is a really great matchup. I think the biggest thing we need to focus on with the Dolphins is can they protect the quarterback from the pass rush? They've lost their starter in literally 3 straight games. They should have lost Tua in the game before that against the Bills. I think they can hold up against this pass rush. Hopefully, the Steelers ranked 25th in pass rush grade. They're 26th in quick pressure rate. That's pressures of 2.5 seconds or less. Given we talked about Tom Brady just completely dressing down his offensive line, that would lead you to assume that the offensive line let up a lot of pressure. No, they didn't at all. They were 27th in pressure rate last week, 24th in quick pressure rate. Like they were great. Brady just really hates getting hit, couldn't handle it, had a meltdown on the sidelines. That doesn't necessarily mean that we have to worry about the Dolphins here. They're probably going to be just fine in terms of being able to protect Tua. If they can protect Tua, they're going up against a defense that ranks 24th in dropback success rate, which I think also fits to a skill set very well, kind of being able to pick them apart with these steady throws that we're going to get yards after the catch on. Because Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are both playing absolutely fantastic this year. Hill leads the NFL with 3.61 yards per route run. Both he and Waddle are seeing elite target volume. I would be cautious about chasing Mike Gesicki here. His routes have been limited in games with Durham Smythe, who is practicing again. So you got to worry about that. But, if he doesn't go, Gesicki's definitely interesting. Mostert looks trustworthy. 62% of the snaps last week. The knee issue doesn't seem to be a big deal. Kenny Pickett could be forced to the air if everything goes well on the Dolphins side, which I think it probably will. That's really good news for Deontay Johnson. He has a 5.4 yards per target. That's 4th percentile among wide receivers. It's absolutely tanking what could be a very strong season for him. He's gotten a first read target on 23% of his routes, which is 92nd percentile. He has a 28% target share, which is very strong. He's still the same Deontay Johnson. The offense is designed to get him the ball. He is getting open. He is getting targets, but he's just not doing anything on those targets. Yards per target's very volatile.
Maybe because he's not good.
He's not good at everything, but he's good at the thing that matters the most, which is getting the target. Then will he drop the target and so much that he gets benched occasionally? Yes, he will. But he needs to get he's got about 2 yards to go to a bad yards per target. He's so bad on his targets that he can regress positively just
so you can't wait to play him.
So guys, this guy who's terrible. Look, he's awful, and you have to get
yards per target is not
so
sticky.
Bad.
We bet against yards per target. Play Deontay
I was
Johnson.
going to ask if we could just keep betting on Deontay's target share, if it's time to drop him out of the top 24. But okay.
No, you can. You definitely can, especially if volume is up. I think you blindly bet on the target because it's not again, he's also getting a lot of first reads. The offense is designed to get him the ball still.
And assuming Kenny Pickett's in the lineup, Kenny Pickett hasn't been bad. His CPOE is positive. Yeah. Even his EPA per play is not terrible. It's almost exactly neutral, despite him throwing a ton of interceptions, but they've been kind of fluky. So the fact that if you were to cut those out, he would actually look like a pretty solid quarterback.
His accuracy has been much better than Trubisky's.
Yeah, so there's some value to be had here.
For sure. Yeah, Kenny Pickett's
I do that all the time.
Looks interesting as well. 15.5 ADOT. He's got some big play upside. If this game doesn't kind of get there from a volume perspective, Pickens could still be fine because of that ADOT. I'm nervous about Claypool. Pat Fryer's coming back. They're going to be kind of competing for a similar over the middle targets, I think. So those two guys aren't quite as interesting. And Najee Harris also not that interesting. He ranks running back 46, which is dead last in rush yards over expected per attempt. He ranks running back 46, which is also dead last in rushing success rate. He's running back 44 in yards per out run. So if you're really bad at running the ball and really bad at catching the ball, you need to be out there literally for every snap to have any chance at value. His snaps are way down from last year. He played on 80% plus of snaps in 12 of 17 games last year. He's hit that mark just once this season. He's at 75% plus snaps in 14 of 17 games last year. That's 82%. He's hit that mark just twice, 33% this year. He's not the same total, like complete workhorse running back that he was last year. And he's playing even worse than he did as a rookie.
Great.
Besides that, it's really good, actually.
Yeah, other than that, how is the play?
Yeah, he's been killing it.
Good one, Kyle.
I was gonna say he's been killing it in the Mrs. Lincoln leagues. I was thinking about making the same joke. Yeah, he's elite. RB1.
Same joke you made last week.
Same. Just elite RB1 in the Mrs. Lincoln leagues. Moving on, Craig Dennis Carter. Yes. The Raiders and Texans both come off bye with Vegas operating as touchdown home favorites. I'm going to take a quick nap real quick as you tell us. Wow.
Can I also close my eyes? Yeah. I'm very tired. It's 4:30 in the afternoon. This is my nap time.
Craig, but just to take people behind the curtain real quick, Craig, I don't think you're going to be on time for your haircut.
No, I was settling in this chair.
And you're not going to be on time for your haircut.
All right.
I am not.
Let me do this game. All right. Look, Houston. All right, here we go. The Texans are the sixth most extreme run funnel defense. Josh Jacobs is handling nearly 84% of the Raiders' backfield touches, so you can add 2 and 2 and get Josh Jacobs has a huge ceiling here. Obviously,
he's a top 10 RB1 this week.
I mean, he has to be better than that, right? Top 8, 7.
Yeah, it could be top 8. Yeah, he's an RB1.
Okay. Okay. Davis Mills has some sneaky deep league appeal.
All right, cut his mic.
Edit
around that part.
How deep?
18 to 20,
18 to 50 to 70 team leagues.
No, wait. You have to hear me out. All 5 quarterbacks to face
double super flex
Vegas have all 5 quarterbacks to face the Raiders this year have finished as top 10 scorers, which includes the likes of Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and Ryan Tannehill. It's bye weeks. Okay. I'm just trying to throw out some guys who might be available. Don't cut my mic on this next player. Dameon Pierce basically has over the past 3 weeks has the same insanely strong workload as Jacobs, actually over 4 games. Though his matchup is obviously not a great one this week. The Texans are heavy underdogs, and the Raiders allow the lowest EPA per rush through 6 weeks. I will say that maybe Pierce can get by with some pass game involvement. Over his past 2 games, he's caught 9 of 11 targets for 22 yards. So he has that going for him.
Over his past 4, he's run more routes than Rex Burkhead as well. They're still splitting the routes, but the fact that he's not a zero, in fact, he's over 50% as the team's pass catcher. There's something there.
There you go.
It's been several weeks since we had to order a Denny mic cutting, by the way. So it was actually a pretty good run you had there, Denny.
I wouldn't usually talk about Davis Mills, but on bye week central, we're doing it.
By the way, Darren Waller appears like he's not going to come back. He was injured early in that crazy Monday Night Football game. Has yet to resume practicing. It's Foster Moreau season. It's always been Foster Moreau season, I've been told. Actually, no one has said that. I haven't even seen his name mentioned this week, but he is.
Well, he was dealing with something too.
He got in a limited practice early in the week, so it looks like he should be able to come back, but it's worth checking in on. He was actually kind of involved. He had like 3 catches for 30-some yards in back-to-back games before he got hurt. Let's fire up our Moreaus.
As someone who touted Foster Moreau when he ran, I think last year there was a game where he ran like 43 routes and didn't see a target. I
thought the story was going to have a happy ending.
Yeah.
So Pat, I'm trying to make a haircut and you bring up Foster Moreau. Thanks, man.
By the way, Denny, you had a tweet earlier this week about how excited you were to tout the very Foster Moreau like Juwan Johnson.
Juwan Johnson.
And it featured
that's happening tonight.
A very teary man. We won't say his name, but you should go check out the tweet. We're getting near the end. Pat, his hair, the follicles are basically starting to fall off his head. They're itching to get out of here. Continuing to operate as the league's worst team in close contests, the Baltimore Ravens arrive home from New York City, actually from New Jersey. They don't play in New York, to host the Browns, the 6.5-point home favorites. Crane, with the frustration growing in Baltimore, what in the world is going on with the Ravens offense? And I don't even know what this question means, why I wrote it like this. I said, what kind of voids is it leaving in fantasy? Just basically, why is the Ravens offense so bad, and why are they not trying to make it better?
Yeah, so I don't think this is a bad offense. I mean, we've got big mistakes from Lamar Jackson, which
he's a poor design. It's more like, why is Greg Roman still the offensive coordinator? Would be a better way, I feel like, to phrase this question.
I'm going to defend the design of the offense. The entire design of the offense is designed to get Mark Andrews the ball, which I think is a defensible position for an offense. Rashad Bateman has a 14.4 off ADOT. He's a deep threat. Devin Duvernay's at 13.8, also a deep threat. They just signed Deshaun Jackson to run sprints downfield. He'll be a deep threat once he gets a target, which might be a while.
Then it's all designed pull his hamstring, but that's neither here nor there.
It's all designed to help open up the middle of the field for Mark Andrews. He is seeing deep targets for tight end, 11.4 ADOT. He has the highest Whopper in the league. That combines target share and air yard share. Highest Whopper in the league, not among tight ends, but among all players. He has the highest target share in the league. So I actually think, for what we want out of this passing game, which is Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, it's kind of nice for fantasy. We know where the targets are going. Bateman, if he's back, does have some value because he gets targeted on these deep routes. So he doesn't get many targets, but what he does get, can lead to fantasy value pretty quickly. So if you look at this offense, they rank 10th in EPA per dropback. They rank 2nd in EPA per rush. They're 4th in EPA per play. I mean, they've made some bad mistakes. They've dropped some games they shouldn't have dropped, but I do think it's actually like a pretty decent offense.
So speaking of, it might be a far less decent offense, in your opinion, your words, not mine. If Mark Andrews doesn't play, he isn't practice back-to-back days. It does seem like they're kind of keeping him off his feet, though. I think he's going to play.
Harbaugh called it rest the first time it happened. They obviously listed him with, I believe, the knee injury, but Harbaugh did come out and say they gave him a rest day. So
that was on Wednesday, yeah. Then he didn't practice again on Thursday, which is a little weirder.
It puts the the radar warning up, but I would
especially because the Ravens have been kind of misleading about this stuff all year. And J.K. Dobbins didn't practice again Thursday. Rashad Bateman does appear like he's going to play, but just kind of like the personnel is in flux for the Ravens this week. My guess is of Thursday afternoon is that Mark Andrews is going to play. Less sure on J.K. Dobbins, Kyle, and it's like this running game getting too gross to touch. Gus Edwards might be back this week, apparently, by the way. They can be really opaque with his status since he's still technically on injured reserve. They don't have to put him in the injury report. What's the breakdown of the Ravens running game?
Yeah, like you said, J.K. Dobbins actually is much more of a threat to not play this game because they hardly played him all last week. John Harbaugh after the game said his knee tightened up. So it doesn't seem like he suffered a serious injury, but it wouldn't be surprising for a player who they continue to hold out to have at least a minor setback or just something flare up where they're not comfortable giving him the bulk of the work. And they, even when he wasn't dealing with in-game knee tightness, were not giving him the bulk of the work in almost any game. He had fewer than 10 carries in all but one game. He was not playing the bulk of the snaps. I think he only got over half. I think it was at half. He didn't even technically get over. He reached half in one single game. And this team is one that they want to pass the football. They're good at it. They're doing it well. They have a pass rate over expected, and they pass in the red zone at a 56% clip. That doesn't even exclude the Lamar Jackson rush attempts, which can also be taken out of J.K. Dobbins' pie. So I think if you're desperate, this is a good offense. We saw, and it was, I believe, J.K. Dobbins' second game back. He had the 2 touchdowns. If you're going to be on the field half the time with an offense that should be able to put up points, we're missing a lot of players this week. Maybe he makes it into your flex, your RB2, but I would be doing anything I can to avoid that.
Great, just real quick, but who doesn't seem to think the Ravens offense is designed that well is most of the Ravens players have subtweeted or just outwardly quote tweeted Greg Roman this year, I feel like. So just a rebuttal there to you. Even though
because the whole thing's designed to funnel targets to Mark Andrews.
Good point, actually. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I would be pretty sore if the tight end just kept getting every single target. So that actually doesn't make a lot of sense. And so you think the Ravens offense is good. I'm not sure what you think of the Browns offense, but each of Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and David Njoku keep seeing pretty steady volume. Is there any way that can keep up? This seems like it might be a good week for it to keep up. against a Ravens pass defense that is really, really, really struggling.
I think Amari Cooper's where it can keep up. I made my whole spiel about Deontay Johnson. We fade yards per target that is ridiculously low. This is another spot to do that. Amari Cooper has a 6.6 yards per target, super low, not the type of thing that's going to sustain you. What you want to do is bet on the fact that he's getting targeted at a really high rate. He's had a first read target on 22% of his routes, indicating that this offense is designed to get him the ball, 93rd percentile for that. So to me, his target volume looks pretty sustainable. I think he's the type of guy you want to bet on for an efficiency spike in yards per target, which, when you see regression, like he doesn't always get back to where he's supposed to. He might be wildly efficient one of these days on that target volume, which means he could be an elite option. On the other hand, David Njoku is running very hot in yards per target. He's kind of got the opposite dynamic going on, where we would expect him to be producing less on the target volume he's gotten so far. He's athletic. He could be an efficient player, but that's something that's makes you a little nervous. Donovan Peoples-Jones has a 17% target rate to Cooper's 27%, which is a massive difference. So Peoples-Jones looks also much more fragile than Amari Cooper, who looks really kind of like he's settled in and carved out a true number one wide receiver role in this team.
Yeah, very, very, very high target totals from Amari Cooper. So the DPJ stuff is weird where he just keeps popping up, but your explanation makes a lot of sense. And maybe David Njoku will lose the argument after all. He's looked very good now for a month, but maybe he's not good is what you're trying to say, Pat.
Just
right?
Get some more targets. Yeah, you got to earn those targets.
You got to earn those targets and
do that.
You've got to earn this haircut. Pat Crane has served his country well. It's time for him to go get trimmed up.
He's not missing much.
So, yeah, he's not missing much because we have only one game left. Kyle Dvorchak's going to talk about it. It's got a 39.5 total. It is an 8-point home favorite in the New England Patriots. And, Bill Belichick is still eliminating young or backup quarterbacks with impunity, Kyle. They host Justin Fields' Bears this week. What do we need to know about this game?
So from the Bears side, it's bad, but the good news is this is on primetime, so you can't watch anything else, unfortunately. The one thing that, from a fantasy perspective, I don't think this will really manifest in much real-life success, but from a fantasy perspective, Justin Fields threw the ball season high 27 times last week, also ran the ball 12 times, a season high as well. He's top 20 pass 20 is such a low mark, but for him, it matters. He's top 20 pass attempts in each of the past 3 weeks, which he wasn't doing early in the year. His best 3 rushing totals have also come in the past 3 weeks. They're throwing him to the wolves, maybe you'd call it, but from a fantasy perspective, a guy who, is breaking the pocket, running on a lot of his dropbacks, and is trying to heave it to Darnell Mooney on the others. I'll take him over Davis Mills. I'm sorry, Denny.
Yes, I agree. They're not designing many runs for him, if any. So he needs those dropbacks to get those opportunities to break out of the pocket and go. In my research this week, I stumbled across this over the past 2 weeks. So very small sample, I get it. But Darnell Mooney has the highest weighted opportunity rate, which incorporates both air yards and target share. I'm sorry, target share and air yard share. He has the highest in the league over the last 2 weeks. So he has that going for him. I think you can start him this week.
Yeah, he was the only other player on this offense, at least the passing attack. Dave Montgomery's getting all the work. He's running routes at he's got a 5-1 advantage over Khalil Herbert, maybe a 4-1 advantage in terms of routes run. But as far as the pass catchers go, Darnell Mooney, like you said, whenever they want to move the ball more than 6 yards downfield, Darnell Mooney is simply their only option. I'm not sure how drafting Velus Jones and trading for N'Keal Harry, I'm not sure how that didn't work. I'm still looking for an answer. But until we find that answer, it's just Darnell Mooney. And the fact that they're letting Fields drop back more means that he may actually have more chances. He will have more chances to convert on this absolutely massive opportunity. Play David Montgomery. He gets all the touches. On the other side of the ball, Jacoby Myers is like the David Montgomery of this receiving room. He has, incredibly high target share and air yard share. We didn't see that manifest a ton last week, but Zappe was just dealing. He was throwing it to anyone. They were all getting open. It's a poor coverage game for the Browns.
That's what he does.
Watch that one. He does. He throws gas, as the baseball guys would call it. But I think we're seeing Mac Jones this week. Signs are pointing to Mac Jones this week. Frankly, I don't think it matters. Like I said, Jacoby Myers, you just play him because of his overall volume within any passing attack. This one, not a particularly exciting one. I feel less confident we see Damian Harris. Even if we do, you're firing up Ramondre.
Well, I got bad news. He practiced in full on Thursday.
Yeah, but I said, hey, I said either way. I think you are firing up Ramondre. He has just frankly looked like the better back and one of the league's best backs so far this year. He's 8th in yards after contact per carry, 5th in carries of 15 plus yards. And his opponent, the Bears, are outside. They're outside the top 20 in terms of rushing EPA per play allowed. And as massive favorites, we expect the Patriots to just control the clock, control the ball. So Damien Harris probably jumps into in his first game back, it's a little skeptical, what his role will be.
Probably more like RB 24 to 32 range.
That's what I'm saying. It's a good enough spot that 12 carries really could be enough to get there. I still think in this first game back and maybe going forward, Ramondre's looks so good. It's hard to put that genie back in the bottle type of deal. But Damien Harris should come back to a week where we have good players on bye as a deep, risky flex play.
I wanted to mention real quick, Tyquan Thornton in somewhat limited usage last week after Kendrick Bourne left the game, led all Patriots pass catchers with a 21% target rate on his routes. He also saw 3 rushes. I think he's very interesting. Maybe not this week. I don't know, but going forward, I'm very interested in Tyquan.
Yeah, he's a player who should be owned in most every league, except really shallow ones.
Yeah, a guy with the second round draft capital kind of coming in, and it didn't seem like it was the plan for him to immediately make plays. They kind of needed him, and he just immediately made plays.
Right.
Definitely something you take note of. And Kyle, with Damien Harris, so you said you don't know if the genie's going back in the bottle with Ramondre. I have personally witnessed Bill Belichick stuff.
No, he wouldn't. No, he wouldn't do some weird stuff with his running backs.
So
not Bill.
Can we trust Ramondre as an RB1? It doesn't. We're gonna play him anyway, so it's kind of immaterial what the actual ranking is. But
I do think he'll fall down to top 15 from where I had him probably top. I probably had him top 8. I haven't checked yet, but
I have him top 8 right now for sure. He'd probably be in that RB 16 to 20 range. So 90% of people who roster him will still be playing him.
Yeah.
But I just, for the Bears, it just seems like one of those weeks for Bill Belichick, pounds Justin Fields through the crust of the earth, basically. It just seems like it's going to be not good for him. Not a good situation for the young man. I was about to make a horrible transition. It's a good situation for us because the podcast is over. We can go rest our voices. We can text Pat. We'll see if Pat sends us a selfie of his haircut.
Zero chance he made this. He was so late.
No, he was. But hey, man, it's New York.
There's no time in New York.
Yeah, there's no time. If you're 10 minutes late, you're 20 minutes early.
Don't they have a place called Times Square? Isn't it the home of time or something?
Yeah,
never heard of it. Never heard.
Crane, he must be going to a barber shop or something down in the basement level of his building or something. I don't know where he's planning to go. He left.
At 4:34.
Yeah, so we broke the fourth wall, maybe a little too much on that one. But his haircut was at 4:30 and he left at 4:34.
We're praying for his haircut. Sorry.
Our thoughts are with Pat. Our thoughts are with you for surviving to the end here. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Check out all of our stuff on the site. Check out Kyle and Pat's live chat on Friday. What time is that, Kyle?
1:00 Eastern.
So check that out. Check out Denny. What's your late week article again?
It's called Funneling Fantasy Points, and I profile run funnel and pass funnel defenses and how we can use that to our advantage in DFS roster building.
Very valuable resource. Check out my rankings article, which I will be keeping updated, and just keep it locked to the site. A lot of injury news this week. So for Pat Carrain, for Kyle Dvorchak, for Denny Carter, I'm Pat Daugherty. We'll catch you later.